What's up, good Vipo? Happy Thursday. We are back with another episode of our Tim Norman trial transcript reading. And tonight we have our cast. Let me know that you can hear me, though, by typing Justice for Dre or Dre Day, Justice for Dre or Dre Day, to let me know that you can hear me. And tonight we have in our cast, we have Margin, Mocha Barbie, Shamika, and Shamika's in twice, and myself. And tonight we are going to, I was looking at where we left off the last time, but I was also trying to see, we're going to skip along because we're only going to have a couple more episodes of this. So I want to hop to like the hot topics, the hot button pieces of the trial. And so what we have today is the testimony from the actual FBI agents who played a pivotal role in certain pieces of the trial. And so we're going to get right into that. I'm going to pull our cast up, and we're going to only be here a little while because we have another show. We have our Surviving Darius Crooks live stream on the main channel, on the Vell B Reacts channel. So if you're not subscribed over there, definitely go over there and subscribe as well. So that'll be after this, after I prepare for that show. So let's pull up our cast. First, I'm going to pull up Margin. Then we have Mocha Barbie. And Shamika has two of these, so I'm going to go with the one with the avatar. I'm hoping this is Shamika on this one. And Shamika, is that... Oh, let me take this down. Okay, great. That's Shamika. Okay, give me a second. I'm going to pull up... I got some stuff over here that's not organized, but pull up the transcript, and then we're going to get going. Screen share. Oh, I got two of them up. Okay, here we go. This is the one we want. All right. And so we're going to get into it. We're starting on page 169, line 11, where it says, Special Agent James Applebaum, having duly been sworn, was examined and testified as follows. And then Ms. Carroll.
Sorry, I had myself on mute. Yeah. Good afternoon, Mr. Applebaum.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Applebaum, where do you work?
I am a senior financial investigator with the FBI.
How long have you been a senior financial investigator with the FBI?
I have done that for the past 12 years, and before that, I was a special agent with the FBI for 25 years.
Okay. As a part of your work with the FBI, did you engage in financial investigation in connection with the life insurance policies of Andre Montgomery's murder?
Yes.
Did you create a summary of records that you acquired and reviewed as part of the investigation?
I did.
Is that summary reflected as Government Exhibit 67?
It is.
Have you previously both compiled and ensured the accuracy of the analysis in that exhibit?
I have.
Does that exhibit accurately reflect the records you've received and reviewed?
It does.
Your Honor, I move to admit as a demonstrative Government's Exhibit 67.
Any objection, counsel?
Yes, for the same reason I stated at sidebar. Objection to relevance and cumulative. Whatever.
The objection is overruled. You may proceed.
Please go to page 2. Mr. Applebaum, could you please explain the analysis you did that appears on page 2 there?
Yes. This is an analysis of the 5 different life insurance policies that were applied for, all with an insured of Andre Montgomery, all with an owner of Tim Norman, and all with a beneficiary of Tim Norman.
Is the amount of those policies reflected on your side as well?
Yes, I can go through them in order. The America policy had a face amount of $250,000. 17 days later, the Forester's policy was applied for, had a face value of $200,000. An accidental death rider, which would include murder, of $200,000. A 10-year term rider of $50,000 for a total of $450,000 during the first 10 years. The
The Royal.
Royals,
Oh, go ahead.
I
I'm
think
sorry.
that's still
I'm
me.
reading your thing.
That's okay. The Royal Neighbors policy, which is applied for 5 months later, had an amount of $249,999, which is $1 under the amount that will require a physical examination of Mr. Montgomery. The United of Omaha policy, which
Mm.
was applied for 6 months later, had a policy of $300,000, a face value, and then an accidental death rider of $100,000, total $400,000. And the fifth policy, oh my goodness, Capital Life Liberty was applied for 6 days later, had a face amount of $250,000 and an accidental death rider of $250,000 for a total of $500,000.
Could we go to the next slide, please? Mr. Applebaum, were you able to identify who the agents were who submitted those applications?
Yes, each of these applications was applied for by Y.L. Yagnam, with the exception of the last policy. It was applied for in the name of Valerie Lewis.
Have you been able to determine the business relationship between Mr. Yagman and Miss Lewis?
Yes, they had a company by the name of Dime Brokers, LLC. That was the purpose, was to form a life and health insurance agency, and they worked together on filling out life insurance applications.
Mr. Applebaum, what is the jury looking at on this slide?
This is the Articles of Organization for the state of Missouri.
And what is the companies that identified in this?
Dime Brokers, LLC.
And under the names and addresses of the organizer, could you please read that highlighted language?
Sure. It is Valerie Lewis at 723 Matadary Lane, and YL Rabbi Yagnam at 723 Matadary Lane.
Line 2 there. Could you please read the purpose of this organization?
Yes, to form
I
a.
will. Oh, go ahead. He cuts her off, but him off. But I didn't mean to cut you off that quick. Go ahead.
Yes, to form a life.
I will renew the objection to relevance.
The objection will be overruled. You can answer, sir.
Thank you. It indicates it is to form a life and health insurance agency call center, marketing, and lead generation.
Mr. Applebaum, as part of your investigation, did you also review a number of text messages exchanged between Mr. Yagman and Mr. Norman?
I did.
Can you please go to the next slide, Mr. Applebaum? What are we looking at? The right hand side of the slide there.
This is Mr. Norman's mobile phone, and it is a screenshot indicating that he had a contact for Wally New with a mobile phone number of and an email of.
Were you able to determine who the subscriber was, that Wally New phone number?
Yes, the subscriber was Mr. Y.L. Yagnam, the insurance agent who submitted those applications.
Going to the next slide, please. Mr. Applebaum, what are the dates of communication between Mr. Yagman and Mr. Norman that were identified on this slide?
These communications took place on September the 17th, 2014, about a month before the first America application went in.
Can you please read the communication that are identified in the call out box?
Yes, the blue are the communications for Mr. Norman, and the gray are for Mr. Yagnam. So it starts with Mr. Norman saying, Wally, I need a life insurance policy on my nephew, bro. Mr. Yagnam, okay, when? Mr. Norman, soon as you can get paperwork together. He is 19, just moved from Texas last week, and got him an EI with Carl. Will I need his mom to sign? She is a piece of shit.
Oh, wow. Do you know what EI is, Mr. Applebaum?
I do not.
Can we please go to the next slide? What is the jury looking at on this slide, Mr. Applebaum?
This again is text communications between Mr. Norman and Mr. Yagnam, and this is on October the 7th of 14. This would be 7 days before the Miracle application went in. Again, the communications in the blue are from Mr. Norman, from the gray are from Mr. Yagnam. It starts out with Mr. Norman saying, WYA, or where you at, bro? Mr. Yagnam, North Side. Mr. Norman, damn, LOL. The one time I'm in the county, you in the city. Mr. Norman, I got him with me. What info do you need so when we link, we can just sign papers, then be done? Mr. Norman, don't want to talk about it in front of him. Mr. Yagnam, okay, we'll just answer the phone. Well, just answer the phone. Mr. Norman, he's with me. Mr. Yagnam, I know. Watch how I do it.
About how long after this text message did you say that the first application went in, Mr. Applebaum?
7 days later, their Miracle application went in.
Can you please go to the next slide? What is the jury looking at in this slide, Mr. Applebaum?
On the left side, you are looking at a text communication between Mr. Norman and Mr. Yagnam. And on the right side, you're looking at their Miracle life insurance application that was submitted.
Can you please walk the jury through the text communications that appear on the left side of the screen between Mr. Norman and Mr. Yagnam?
Yes, this is on October the 8th, 2014, a day after the ones I just read. And again, this starts with Mr. Yagnam saying, don't forget the checking info. Mr. Norman, okay. And then he provides the bank account and the bank routing number.
It's wild that they put that in the transcripts.
It is.
Yep.
I didn't even notice that. Wow. Okay.
And the bank account name, James T. Norman. Mr. Yagnam says, thanks.
Mr. Applebaum, what appears on the right side of this slide?
This is the Miracle life insurance application that was submitted. You will see that it was for an insured of Andre Montgomery. The payer information who was paying on the application was James T. Norman. There is a signature of James T. Norman, a date of October 14, 2014, and then below it indicates that the U.S. bank account with that routing number and that account number for Mr. Norman will be used to make payments on their account.
How does the information that appear on the Americo life insurance application compare to the information in the text message sent by Mr. Norman?
It is identical. The same routing number, the same account number.
Okay. Can we please go to the next slide? What happened on October 14th, 2014, Mr. Applebaum?
The Americo life insurance policy was submitted by Mr. Yagnam and Mr. Norman, and as you can see, it was submitted with an insured name of Andre L. Montgomery. It indicated that his age was 20, that he was a musical producer with an annual salary of $100,000.
What was the amount of the policy?
The amount of that policy, as you can see on the right, the face amount was $250,000, and the beneficiary was James Timothy Norman, who would receive 100% of the premium of the policy payout.
Can you please go to the next slide? What is on the slide, the next slide here?
We're looking at the policy that was submitted on to America on October the 14th, 2014. And I'll just read the highlighted portion. Any person who knowingly presents a false or fraudulent claim for payment of a loss or a benefit, or knowingly presents false information in an application for insurance, is guilty of a crime and may be subject to fines and confinement in prison. Reading below, it indicates that Mr. Norman, who signed this, we have read this application and represent to Americo that the statements made on this application are true, complete, and correctly recorded to the best of our knowledge and belief.
Mr. Applebaum, let's go ahead and take a look at those representations made in the application. Can we please go to the next slide? What's at the top of this slide, Mr. Applebaum?
At the top is the application for insurance, which indicates that Andre L. Montgomery is the proposed insured and that he has an address of, which is a business address of Sweetie Pie's Mangrove. And it indicates that he has lived there for the past 5 years, which would be from the age of 15 to 20.
So then how long has Mr. Montgomery supposedly been living in a Sweetie Pie's restaurant according to the application?
The past 5 years.
Can we please go to the next slide? What is the jury looking at on this slide, Mr. Applebaum?
Again, this is the same Americo life insurance policy for Andre L. Montgomery, and below that is some text messages between Mr. Norman and Mr. Yagnam on September the 17th, 2014, which is about 4 weeks before the application was submitted.
And what is Mr. Norman saying in those text messages?
Again, in the blue, soon as you can get paperwork together, he is 19. Just moved him from Texas last week and got him in.
And then a month later, when the life insurance application was submitted, what was represented about how long Andre Montgomery had been living in St. Louis?
5 years at that address.
Please go to the next slide. Mr. Applebaum, what are we looking at here?
Okay, so this is 3 and 4 days after the Americo application was submitted. And these are attempts by Americo to contact Andre Montgomery to complete a personal health interview with him since he was the insured.
And the jury is familiar with this exhibit, but can you just walk through the date and highlight a portion of what is occurring in the Amico log?
Okay, I want to bring up Precious. Precious is with us. And Precious is going to be doing the role of Angie Danis, right? Is that right?
Yeah, you said
Angie Danis, attorney Angie Danis, and also if we make it to Ed Chandler, she'll be doing both those roles. Uh-oh. Is you at it?
I'm here.
There we go. I don't know.
I'm here. I'm sorry I'm late.
No problem. Okay. Mr. Leonard is saying objection, cumulativeness, relevance.
The slide is entirely repetitive. The objection is sustained as to this slide.
We can go to the next slide. Mr. Applebaum, what is the contact number that's listed for Andre Montgomery on the Americo life insurance application?
Objection, Judge, cumulativeness. Relevance.
Kind of tongue-tied, aren't you?
Right.
The objection is overruled.
The phone number is the number listed for Mr. Montgomery and Mr. Norman.
Go on to the next slide. Have you been able to determine who the register user actually was on that phone number?
Yes, it is the phone number of Mr. Norman.
Of course it is. Go on to the next slide. What are we looking at here, Mr. Applebaum?
This again is a series of text messages from October the 27th through October 31st, 2014 along with a calendar on the right. I'll just read at the beginning. Mr. Yagnam, I tried to call you. Call me. Mr. Norman, what's up with the policy? And that communication took place on October 27th. On October 31st, Mr. Norman reached out. Policy? Mr. Yagnam, you should have by next Friday. They will call you on Monday. Act like you are Andre.
Mr. Applebaum, looking at the calendar that appears on the right-hand side, what day of the week was October 31st?
That was Friday.
What was the date of the following Monday?
That Monday was November 3rd.
Can we go to the next slide, please? What communications occurred on November 3rd, that Monday, between Mr. Yogman and Mr. Norman?
Mr. Yagnam says, what's up? They're going to call you. I need to talk to you first. Mr. Norman, I didn't get email with info. Mr. Yagnam, did they call you? Mr. Norman, yep, I missed it. They left callback info. Mr. Yagnam, call them back ASAP. Mr. Norman, I need the info, BD, SOS, etc. Mr. Yagnam, I just sent it. Mr. Norman, okay, all is good.
It wasn't good because you didn't get it. But can we go on to the next slide, please? Mr. Applebaum, what is the jury scene on this slide?
This is the personal health interview for life and mortgage insurance that was completed by an Americo representative by the name of Nidia Galvez on November 3rd, 2014.
Is that November 3rd, 2014? Is that the same Monday that we saw on the calendar?
Yes, it is.
Objection, relevance, cumulative.
The objection will be overruled. You can answer, sir.
Aren't you getting tired of being overruled? But
Mhm.
Mr. Applebaum, what does the person America is speaking with say their name is according to this record?
It indicates that the person they spoke with was Andre Montgomery with a date of birth of 10/14/94 and the last four digits of his social security number of.
Can we go to the next slide, please? What is the date of the text message between Mr. Norman and Mr. Youngman?
It is the same date of November the 3rd, 2014, saying, I need the info, BD, SOS, etc. Mr. Yagnam, I just sent it.
And that is the information that appears in the record of America speaking with what they believe to be Andre Montgomery.
Yes, it is.
Can we go to the next slide, please? Please walk the jury through this. I know this is a bit of a dense slide you put together.
Yes. This is November the 3rd, 2014. Again, the email is at the top from Mr. Yagnam. You should have by next Friday. They will call you on Monday. Act like you're Andre. Call them back ASAP. Mr. Norman, I need the info, BD, SOS, etc. Again, that took place at 2:30 p.m. on November 3rd. Mr. Yagnam, I just sent it. Mr. Norman at 2:31 p.m. Okay. At 2:50 p.m. All good.
What time does the America record indicate that America spoke with what they believe to be was Andre Montgomery?
The end time of the conversation was at 2:51, 1 minute after Mr. Norman said it was all good.
Can we please go to slide 21, Mr. Applebaum? If you know what ultimately happened with the America application.
On November the 5th, 2014, Americo did not issue the policy. On December the 10th, 2014, Mr. Yagnam withdraws the application, and Americo indicated that the insurable interest of the owner and the I guess beneficiary, was not met. What financial hardship will the uncle incur? Need new owner or Ben?
Bam. So, Mr. Applebaum, go to the next slide. Was another life insurance application on Andre Montgomery applied for?
Judge, again, objection, cumulative. Oh,
The
relevant.
objection will be
We've been
overruled.
through this. I thought I was done. We've been through this.
The objection will be overruled.
Yes. 17 days after Miracle application, a forester's life application was submitted by Mr. Norman and Mr. Yagnam for Mr. Montgomery as their insured.
Who was the beneficiary on that policy? Camel Hips?
This policy again was James Timothy Norman, beneficiary listed as uncle, receiving 100% of the payout.
Surprise, surprise.
Mm.
This policy again was James Timothy Norman, beneficiary listed as uncle receiving 100%. Oh no. If we can go to the next slide, please. What was the amount of that policy?
The forester's policy had a face amount of $200,000. It had an accidental death rider of $200,000. And then it had a term policy, 10-year term policy of $50,000. So if Mr. Montgomery died in the first 10 years from an accident, including murder, the payout would be $450,000.
Very interesting. Can we go to slide 25, please? What is the representation made at the last page of Forrester's application, Mr. Applebaum?
This is again the second application submitted. It says the statements, answers, and representations contained in this application are full, complete, and true to the best of my knowledge and belief, and the signature of James T. Norman is below on October 31st of 14.
Mr. Applebaum, was the Forrester's policy approved?
It was.
As part of your investigation, did you obtain Mr. Norman's bank records?
We did.
Can you please go to the next slide? What is the jury looking at in this slide that reflected government's Exhibit 24?
This is the U.S. bank statement for James T. Norman with the account number we saw earlier that was texted between Mr. Yagnam and Mr. Norman. And it indicates that on November the 10th, 2014, which would be just about a month after the submission of the application to foresters, that a payment in the amount of $185.16 was paid out. There were 17 total payments paid out beginning in November of 2014 and ending in March of 2016, right before Mr. Montgomery was murdered.
So that March payment was made the month that Andre was murdered?
Yes, on March 6th, just 8 days before he was murdered.
Can we please go to the next slide? What is the communication the jury is looking at here, Mr. Applebaum?
On the left, again, is a text between Mr. Norman and Mr. Yagnam, and this text took place on March 6, 2015, 8 days before the murder. Mr. Norman says, "Any way you can check if that life insurance for my nephew is still active? I don't see the monthly withdrawals from the bank account." Mr. Yagnam, "It didn't cancel on my end." Mr. Norman, "Okay, how much was it again monthly? I'm trying to find it."
Mr. Applebaum, was this communication in March of 15 and not March of 16?
I'm sorry, you are right. I misspoke. It was March of 15, 1 year before the murder.
And if you know, did Mr. Norman continue to pay the premiums up through the time of the murder?
He did. He made a total of 17 payments.
Please go to the next slide. What happened on March 16th, 2015, Mr. Applebaum?
Mr. Norman authorized a submission of a third life insurance policy, this time to Royal Neighbors.
Looking at the communication here, can you please read through these?
Again, this is between Mr. Yagnam and Mr. Norman. Starts out with Mr. Yagnam. "I just contracted with the other company. I can get better cash value on Andre's policy and more coverage for what you are paying. Do you want me to transfer it? Instead of $200K, it would be $300K. Mr. Norman, will he have to re-sign shit? Re-sign? Mr. Yagnam, nah, I can transfer. Mr. Norman, okay, because he is wilding out there. Mr. Yagnam, I got you. Mr. Norman, ain't even seen the N word. Mr. Norman, how long is it that change process going to take? Mr. Yagnam, a week. I took care of everything. Mr. Norman, I want to sign papers while I'm in town if I have to, okay? You need another check? Mr. Yagnam, it is going to be $250K. Otherwise, he would have had to take a physical for more than that. Mr. Norman. Okay, Mr. Yagnam. If I do need a check, you can just take a picture of a voided check, just as long as the account numbers are legible, and just text it to me. Mr. Norman. Double on accidental? Question mark.
Mr. Applebaum, going to the next slide. That same day that Mr. Camel Hips Norman and Mr. Youngman were speaking about the life insurance application, what happened with the Royal Neighbors application?
Objection, Your Honor. Cumulative relevance.
Approach the sidebar, counsel.
The judge getting tired of you, Leonard.
Mhm.
I do understand the objection that you're making. And if there is something else you want to put on the record as it relates to that, I want to give you an opportunity to do it. And I'll try to explain to you my position with regard to that.
I understand, Judge. I mean, we have been through every one of these documents, and that just puts the witness on the stand to read. There is nothing, just like the last witness. He is a reader. It is entirely cumulative. It is not relevant because it was already in evidence. This guy knows nothing about the contents of anything. We have already done it. We are now doing it twice. Judge, unfortunately, I have to move forward for a mistrial because I feel there is no, it is prejudicial to us because they are putting the same things out twice.
Do you have any response?
Of course I do, Your Honor. The jury has actually never seen such sequential explanation of the applications, and also never seen any of these text messages before. Although Special Agent Faber did read some messages, he never put in the March 16, 2015 messages. And further, the financial records have not been seen by the jury.
So this exhibit and this witness, as I understand it, is a financial investigator who is putting together the sequence of events and is coordinating those things. It does assist the jury in understanding evidence that has been in some instance previously admitted. In some instance, it is new. The one exhibit that I sustained the objection to, it was, in my view, entirely repetitive. But many of these exhibits are putting together the timing of the text messages and the events that are occurring. And it is that sense, yes, the witness is relevant. It is admissible. It is proper analysis of the evidence. So objection is noted. You are free to continue to make objections if you think particular exhibits is objectionable. The motion for a mistrial will be denied. I don't believe there is any undue prejudice to the defendant. I don't think that the benefits of the analysis does assist the jury in understanding the sequence of events and the occurrence and the follow the evidence. So objection will be overruled and the motion for a mistrial will be denied.
I understand.
Do you?
And the mistrial will be denied.
Understood. And I won't be making objections because even though I think these are repetitive, I am not going to continue doing it to not be disruptive.
If
What? I
there
thought
is
his
a
whole goal was to
particular
be.
objection that you want to make, I'm going to encourage you to go ahead and make it.
Thank you, Judge. And then the proceedings resume in open court.
Counsel may proceed.
Mr. Applebaum, I believe you were explaining to the jury the World Neighbors life insurance application. What is the jury looking at here?
This is from the application of the third life insurance policy on March 16, 2015, which again is several months after the first two and a year before the murder. It indicates that Andre Montgomery is the proposed insured. The same address of which is the Sweetie Pie's Mangrove business address. And now it says he has lived there for 10 years.
In that earlier application we saw from October 14th, how long had Mr. Montgomery been living at the Sweetie Pie's restaurant? Apparently.
5 years.
Can we please go to the next slide? What are we looking at here, Mr. Applebaum?
Again, this is the third policy from Royal Neighbors, and there is a fraud notice warning which says any person who knowingly presents a false statement in an
You have to slow up when you read. Thank you.
I'm sorry,
Thank you.
any person who knowingly presents a false statement in an application for insurance may be guilty of a criminal offense and subject to penalties under state law.
Mr. Applebaum, does the proposed insurer and the proposed owner, do they supposedly sign this application?
Yes,
Please go to slide 34. What is the jury seen in slide 34, Mr. Applebaum?
this is on September 18, 2015. Some text communications between Mr. Norman and Mr. Yagnam when they are getting ready to submit the fourth and fifth life insurance policy on Mr. Montgomery.
Well, they say the fifth time's the charm. Can you please read the communication that begins on September 18th, 2015?
Yes, Mr. Yagnam in the gray. I changed Andre's insurance to Mutual of Omaha in case they try to call you. I've been trying to get in contact with you. Your premium went from $189 to $141. You are welcome. And if you wanted to make the benefit over a meal, I could have made it happen for $300 a month. Call me, man. Mr. Norman. Wally. Oh, shit. Phone number. Mr. Yagnam. Yo, we need to do that interview today and another one with Liberty. Please give me 15 minutes to get this done.
Please go to the next slide, Mr. Applebaum. Did a policy get applied for through United of Omaha?
Yes, the fourth life insurance policy was submitted on September 18, 2015. Again, the proposed insured was Andre L. Montgomery. Indicated he was a male, 5 feet 7 inches tall, 165 pounds, with an annual income of $65,000. His home address again was, which is Sweetie Pie's Mangrove address. The phone number was, which is Mr. Norman's number, and it indicated that Mr. Montgomery was a music producer for the Sweetie Pie's TV show.
Living at a restaurant. So, Mr. Applebaum, can we please go to slide 38? What is the phone number that Mr. Norman texted Mr. Yagman on September 18th, 2015?
Okay, it's the phone number.
Okay, go on to the next slide, please. Please explain what the jury is seeing on this slide, Mr. Applebaum.
Yes, this is the United of Omaha life insurance application that was submitted on September 18, 2015. And on page 1, it indicates please try calling and then the
And
phone.
who is supposed to be speaking with the United States? Sorry about that. Okay, who is he supposed to be speaking with United of Omaha for that call?
Andre Montgomery.
Please go to the next slide. Whose phone number is?
That is Mr. Norman's phone number.
Mr. Applebaum, you mentioned the fifth life insurance policy applied for. Can we please go to slide 41? What is the jury looking at here?
This is the fifth policy submitted on September 24, 2015. Again, the insured is Andre Montgomery. The phone number of was scratched out, and the new number for Mr. Norman of was written in. The face amount on this policy was $250,000, with an accidental death rider of $250,000, which would result in a total payout of $500,000.
Mr. Applebaum, I think you may have misspoken. Was that supposed to be Mr. Campbell Hips Norman's phone number? Or did the application say that it was Mr. Montgomery's number?
Yes, I'm sorry. It is Mr. Norman's number, but it is indicating it is Mr. Montgomery's number.
Please go to slide 44. Mr. Applebaum, have you been able to identify various representations that were made in these applications and compare them?
Yes,
What are those categories that you have compared?
the five categories: Andre Montgomery's income, net worth, and employment, his personal data, his medical records, whether he had other insurance policies, and whether he was aware of and authorized the applications.
Slide 45, please. Mr. Applebaum, can you please walk the jury through this table that you created?
Yes, there are five policies, and they are in chronological order. The first one, Americo, which was submitted on October 14, 2014, indicated that Mr. Montgomery had a salary of $100,000. The second one, Foresters, which was submitted on October 31st, 2014, showed his income had dropped to $28,000, that his net worth was now $200,000. The third one, Royal Neighbors, 5 months later, indicated his income had dropped to $50,000. His net worth had stayed at $200,000. The fourth one, United of Omaha, 6 months later, indicated his income had increased to $65,000. The fifth policy, Capital Life Liberty, 6 days later, his income had increased to $100,000 and his net worth was $200,000.
Hmm, all from frying chicken. But Mr. Applebaum, have you been able to do any analysis or investigation into Andre Montgomery's financial position or situation?
I have.
Please go to the next slide. What records did you use in that investigation?
We looked at financial records, including an application for an assisted housing application submitted on 8/22/14 by Mr. Montgomery.
And how does that compare to the date of the first life insurance application?
That's just less than 2 months before the first policy.
Next slide, please. What is represented in that assisted housing application Mr. Montgomery submitted about 2 months before the first life insurance application regarding his income?
It indicates that he has employment or wages of $13,195.
Oh, wow. And looking at the representation in the life insurance application, what does that say about Mr. Montgomery's salary?
It indicates he is earning $100,000 as a music producer.
And how long after the housing application was that representation made in the life insurance application?
Less than 2 months.
Please go to slide 40 through 47, 48. Mr. Applebaum, what representation was made about Mr. Montgomery's income in the rural neighbors application?
This was the third application. It shows he has an annual income of $50,000 and a net worth of $200,000.
Going to slide 49, please. What is the jury looking at in slide 49?
Again, this is that same West House rental application, and it indicates that he has no assets and is earning no income from assets.
No wonder he's living at Sweetie Pies. Can we please go to slide 50? Mr. Applebaum, what is the table in slide 50 showing?
This is simply a summary of the employment that he indicated on the five policies. The first policy, Americo, indicates he is a music producer. The second policy, which was issued Foresters, indicates he is a music producer and his employer is James Timothy Norman. The third policy, Royal Neighbors, indicates he is a music producer and his employer is Sweetie Pie's TV show. The fourth policy does not
Miss-
indicate any employment, and the fifth policy with Capital Life indicates he is a music producer. His employer, Sweetie Pie Show.
Mr. Applebaum, as part of your investigation, did you obtain employment or financial records from Sweetie Pie's TV show?
I did.
Please go to slide 51. What is in slide 51?
These are the checks. Some of the checks that we found that were payable to Mr. Montgomery from the Pilgrim operations for the Sweetie Pies TV show.
Can you please explain to the jury just sort of what those checks say? First of all, who is the payer on the check is who is writing that check?
Yeah. The payer on each of these checks is Sweetie Pie's Pilgrim Operations Incorporated, which was putting on the show. They are all payable to Andre Montgomery. We have various check dates here, all in the amount of $400. The first one is July 22nd, 2013. The second one is August 12th, 2013. And the third one is August 28th, 2013. Again, each of those is a $400 check to Andre Montgomery. Well,
That does not sound like 50,000 to me, but did you create a table summarizing what you found in terms of the money that Andre Montgomery had actually received from Sweetie Pie's TV show?
I did.
Can you explain to the jury what you were able to find about how much money Andre Montgomery actually got from the Sweetie Pie's TV show?
Yes. For the records we had from January 1st, 2013 to the present, we found a total of $3,200 was paid to Mr. Montgomery.
That's crazy. They were paying him
It is
pennies.
Yes,
Pennies.
nothing. Oh, wow.
man.
And he
He
was the
got paid
star of the show
nothing.
while he was on. That's crazy.
It
His own
is
family. Greed.
greedy.
Mm. Wow. I'm speechless.
Mm.
And what period of time were those payments made during?
3 months beginning June 3rd of 13 and then September 11 of 13.
Wow. Can you please go to slide 53? What period of time was represented as Andre Montgomery's term of employment with Sweetie Pie's TV show in this application?
On the Royal Neighbors application, he indicated he had been working there for 3 years with an annual income of $50,000.
3,200, 50,000. Wow. And what period pays do you actually find Mr. Camel Hips, Mr. Montgomery received?
3 months for $3,200.
Now we can see why Andre was like, I'm not cutting my hair and taking out my social media for y'all.
Right.
What?
For what? He
Right.
wasn't
For
getting
that.
anything.
Right.
He wasn't making any money.
Indian nickels.
No.
Pl- Please go to slide 54, Mr. Applebaum. You mentioned that you looked at the personal data of Andre Montgomery that was included in the application. What does table in slide 54 show?
Again, these are the 5 life insurance applications in chronological order. And in each one of them, his height and weight was listed at 5'7", 165. In each one of them, his home address was listed of which is the Sweetie Pie's Mangrove business address. And in the first 4, his telephone number was listed as which is Mr. Norman's telephone number. And in the last one, it was which again was Mr. Norman's telephone number.
Mr. Applebaum, as part of your investigation, did you obtain Andre Montgomery's DMV records?
I did.
Can we please go to the next slide? Mr. Applebaum, what do Andre Montgomery's DMV records said his actual height and weight were?
5'11", 185 pounds.
Ooh, that's so different from 5'6". 5'7". So how does that compare to the representation made in the application?
4 inches taller than the 5'7" and 20 pounds heavier than the 165.
Can we please go to the next slide? Mr. Applebaum, have you also compared the representation made about Mr. Montgomery's medical records in the application?
Yes.
Ain't that kind of a shame though? Like it shows he paid his nephew no attention. Like you could
Mm-mm.
tell your nephew who's 5'7" versus 5'11.
Right.
The fact that he didn't even know that
No.
means you pay him no attention.
That's sad and sick.
That is horrible. He was just horrible. Can we
Mhm.
please wait? That are we on 6? Can we please go to the next slide, Mr. Applebaum? Have you also compared the representation made about Mr. Montgomery's medical records in the application?
Yes.
Can you explain to the jury what they are seeing on this slide?
Yes. In the second application, which was Forrester's, that was issued, it indicates that he last, Mr. Montgomery, last consulted a physician on December of 13 at the People's Health Clinic for a regular checkup. On the third application, Royal Neighbors, 6 months later, it indicated that he had last seen an attending physician at People's Choice on September of 14 for a checkup.
Can we go to the next slide, please? How about the Liberty Life Insurance application? What representation is made there about Mr. Montgomery's medical records?
Here, he indicates that he had last seen an attending physician at Barnes Jewish Hospital on August of 2014.
As part of your investigation, did you attempt to obtain Andre Montgomery's records from both of those medical providers?
I did.
Can we please go to the next slide? Did you issue a subpoena to the People's Health Clinic, Mr. Applebaum?
We did.
What did you find out about Andre's medical records there?
That they found no records of Andre Montgomery as a patient at People's Health Clinic.
Surprise, surprise. And can we go to the next slide, please? How about Barnes, Mr. Applebaum? Was Andre Montgomery a patient at Barnes?
Again, they indicated they could find no records that he was ever a patient at Barnes Jewish Hospital.
Another surprise there. Okay, Mr. Applebaum. As part of your investigation, have you also reviewed communication between Mr. Norman and an attorney he had retained as part of his collection efforts?
I have.
Can we please go to slide 60? Mr. Applebaum.
Judge, I'm just going to object again to relevance, cumulative. We just went through this.
Cancel. Will you approach the sidebar?
Then proceedings were held at sidebar.
Is he going to reread the next message?
It's a single text message. It is the statement where Mr. Camel Hips Norman said he didn't see a doctor. We can just go to the next slide.
Okay, go to the next slide.
Then proceedings resume in open court.
Mr. Applebaum, please go to slide 64. Mr. Applebaum, you also mentioned that you looked at whether Andre Montgomery had authorized the application at issue here. What is the communication between Mr. Camel Hips Norman and Mr. Yagman that appears in this text message?
This is on October 31st, 2014. Mr. Norman says, policy? Question mark. Mr. Yagnam, you should have by next Friday. They will call you on Monday. Act like you are Andre. Mr. Norman, okay, I ain't seen this word in over a week, bro.
Mr. Applebaum, are you aware of whether Andre Montgomery was murdered on March 14th, 2016?
I am.
Have you analyzed Mr. Camel Hips Norman's phone records in connection with this attempt to collect on that life insurance?
I have.
Could you please go to 69? Can you explain to the jury the sequence of events there seen on slide 69?
Yes. This is Mr. Norman's efforts to collect on the $450,000 Forrester's policy. On March 14, 2016, Andre Montgomery was murdered. 4 days later, on March 18, 2016, Y.L. Yagnam called Forrester's asking about a payout on the policy. That same day, Mr. Norman contacted Forrester's. 3 days later, on March 21st, 2016, Mr. Norman contacted Forrester's twice by telephone. And 4 days later, on March 25th, 2016, Mr. Norman ordered Andre Montgomery's death certificate.
Can we please go to slide 70? What is the jury looking at in the government's exhibit 63 depicted on slide 70?
This is indicating that Mr. Norman ordered Andre Montgomery's death certificate on March 25th, 2016.
He wasted no time. Mm-mm. And how long after Andre Montgomery's death did Mr. Campbell Hips Norman attempt to order his death certificate?
This is 11 days after his murder.
Wow. Can we please go to the next slide? What is The record that appears in Government's Exhibit 63, page 3, Mr. Applebaum.
On that same day, March 25th, 2016, Vital Check indicated that your request has been refunded or canceled due to the fact that the certificate you are requesting for the recent event is not on file yet.
So the death certificate wasn't even filed yet when he tried to get it?
That's correct.
Can we please go to slide 72, Mr. Applebaum? What is the sequence of events depicted on slide 72?
These are all of Mr. Norman's efforts to collect on the policy that we could find in the records.
I know you have mentioned everything up until the March 21st attempt to collect on the policy. Can you walk the jury through the additional contacts Mr. Camel Hips Norman had with the Foresters Life Insurance Company trying to collect?
Yes, the third line down, August 1st, 2016. Mr. Norman contacted Foresters. 2 weeks later, on August the 15th, 2016, Mr. Norman contacted Foresters. 11 days later, on August 26th, 2016, Mr. Norman contacted Foresters. 3 months after that, on November 9th, 2016, Foresters closed Mr. Norman's claim and refunded his premiums. 9 days later, Mr. Norman contacted Foresters. A year and a half after that, almost 2 years later, on September 11th, 2018, Mr. Norman retained an attorney to assist in collecting on the Foresters policy. And a month after that, Mr. Norman signed an affidavit and sent it into Foresters.
Can we please go to the next slide? Mr. Applebaum, can you please read that message that was sent by Mr. Camel Hips Norman?
Objection, Judge. We have been here. I also wanted to add, now 11 days later, he's trying to get Dre's death certificate. But y'all keep in mind, he never once even called Miss Michelle to say
Right.
anything like condolences, I'm so sorry that this happened to Dre, or nothing. Called no family members, but was trying to get the death certificate.
Right.
Crazy.
The objection is overruled.
Aren't you getting tired of objecting and keep this overruled? Mr. Applebaum, what did the defendant, Camel Hips Norman, tell his attorney about his efforts to collect on Forrester's policy?
On September 18, 2018, Mr. Norman said, I never followed up because I was moving so much and money wasn't an issue.
No further questions.
Mr. Leonard,
Now you ain't talking, Leonard?
Just a couple, Judge. Okay, Mr. Leonard. You weren't trying to mislead anybody here today, were you?
No, sir.
I saw in that PowerPoint, it said repeatedly, defendant Norman applies. Didn't you do that?
I'm sorry?
In your PowerPoint, sir, it repeatedly states defendant Norman applies. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Every single application was submitted by either Wally Yagnam or Valerie, right?
Yes.
Not a single application was submitted where defendant Norman applied, right?
He didn't see it. He didn't send it via email. No.
Why did you put in your PowerPoint defendant Norman applies when every single application wasn't applied for by him? It was submitted by someone else.
Because he was the owner of the application. He paid on the application. He had various communications with Mr. Yagnam indicating that he wanted to submit the application.
So that's why you put the PowerPoint like that?
Yes.
Okay. That's so ridiculous. Okay. You are all about fairness and justice, right?
Yes, sir.
They gave you certain materials, right?
Who is they?
The government, who you're working for. Where did you get materials to put together this nice PowerPoint?
In the evidence that we subpoena from.
He is so condescending.
Yes.
We, meaning the prosecutors and you, You are working for them, right?
Work with them, yes.
Yeah. And so, as a part of the materials they gave you to give a full and fair PowerPoint, did they give you their recorded interview that they have with Wally Yagnam?
The recorded interview that the government had with Wally Yagnam?
Yeah. Where these prosecutors and Mr. Rudolph sat down with Mr. Yagnam for hours and interviewed him about what happened. Did they give that to you?
Yes.
Did you read that?
Yes.
And did you read where Mr. Yagnam said he had a meeting with Andre?
Objection calls.
The objection is sustained to the form of the question.
So you read the interview, right?
The transcript, yes.
Yeah. Did you include any reference to the transcript in your PowerPoint?
Of the transcript?
Yeah. In the PowerPoint that you put together, I didn't see anywhere where you reference what Wally Yagnam actually said actually happened.
No.
You didn't do that, did you?
No, sir.
Did they tell you to do that?
They didn't tell me one way or another.
Okay. And it's trying to bring it back to me watching when this was happening in real life. So,
What?
okay. So I'm trying to figure out, you have a recorded statement that they took from Wally Yagnam where he tells you what happened, and you make no reference of it in your PowerPoint, right?
No, sir.
That was your decision, right?
Yes.
To give a skewed misrepresentation
Objection.
of the facts, right?
Objection.
No, sir.
Objection is sustained.
Did you read Yagnam's statement that he claims he met with Andre Montgomery?
Objections call for.
The objection is sustained.
Nothing further. My work here is done.
You didn't do
Any
nothing.
other questions of this witness?
No, Your Honor.
May this witness be finally excused.
Yes, Your Honor.
Can you step down, sir? Thank you, counsel. Can I see you at the sidebar for just a moment?
And then the proceedings were held at sidebar.
Because you know he yelled at you.
Do you have another witness?
I don't. We are a day ahead of the schedule. I don't have another witness available, Your Honor. We will rest tomorrow.
Okay, we're going to need to talk at some point about the schedule. They're saying they're going to rest tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh, Mocha, can you do Rodriguez?
Yeah, I can do it. Rodriguez.
Line 2. What page?
Okay.
206.
I was trying to find out what witness we could call for Friday, knowing that we are ahead of schedule. I don't have really anyone that can come in because we were thinking Monday, so we are ready to start Monday. I'm going to keep trying, so maybe that will change in the next, you know.
We will talk more because I need to understand how much more you have tomorrow and what the schedule is like. Are you going to fill up the whole day tomorrow?
No, we will fill up probably the morning tomorrow, Judge. We have a summary witness and a cell site location expert.
That's it?
That's it. Then we will rest.
Okay, I need you to do whatever you can to move forward.
I'm trying to.
I mean, I understand you're ahead of schedule.
The subpoenas were on the 12th because that's what we had discussed in the pretrial conference. So I don't have even anyone that understands.
I mean, you have a couple of people to continue to be available, you can recall them if that's what you're going to do.
We will do our best, Judge. I understand.
My point is that when they rest, is it incumbent upon you to be ready to proceed. Again, I understand, but the schedule is always moving target. So
I understand.
I'm telling you,
Just Judge, we can understand that, but they said their case would take 5 or 6 days, and so we acted accordingly. We can't have people flying in from all over the country and sitting here for days at a time. We are acting in good faith.
I'm not saying that you aren't acting in good faith. I'm saying, well, we can talk further.
Sure, I understand.
You don't understand nothing. It sounds like.
We're going to keep trying to do that.
Okay. So I'll excuse the jury. I don't know whether or not to have them back. I guess we will have them back and we will see how it goes and see where we are tomorrow.
Okay, whatever you want to do, Judge.
Unless
so defeated.
somebody has any further suggestions, tell
He's
me.
right there.
Well, if it is, I'm sure they would probably rather get out of here earlier than later, but we can start at 10 if that helps their schedule.
We will go ahead and get started. I'm not sure they will be happy.
Sure, okay. And then we don't need to read this part. I think this is him, Judge Ross, just telling the jury that the instructions about what to do overnight, not to say nothing, blah 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 blah.
Do you want to go to line 19?
Yeah, we're gonna jump down to line 19.
The court will be back in session if you will be seated.
I'd like to make an offer of proof with respect to the last motion. The last set of questions that you denied in terms of the witness being sustained. The objection about Yagnam transcript.
If you will go to the podium, go ahead.
Your Honor, I offer, Your Honor, an offer of proof with respect to what the testimony would have been if the court would have allowed the witness to testify about the contents of Mr. Yagnam's recorded statement with the government. That recorded statement was taken by the prosecutors and Detective Rudolph. And in the recorded statement, Mr. Yagnam indicated that he had a meeting with Andre Montgomery and Tim at Tim Norman's apartment, where Mr. Yagnam took down detailed information from Andre Montgomery, including his incorrect height and weight and age, about all of the subjects of the application. Mr. Yagnam further states in that document,
In that recording?
In that recording, he further indicates Mr. Yagnam does that at the meeting, and he had 3 applications with him. He had Andre Montgomery sign each and every one of them, that he filled out one of the 3 completely, that he failed to complete 2 of the others, and that Mr. Yagnam would further indicate in that recording that he used the information provided by Andre Montgomery in filling out all of the life insurance applications that were referenced by this witness.
Miss Carroll, anything you want to tell me about that?
Oh, wait. No, Your Honor, I don't think the court needs any more information from the government.
Go ahead and tell me again what the government objection is.
Your Honor, it is hearsay because Mr. Youngman is not a party opponent for defendant Norman, and there's no way that it becomes admissible through this witness.
And it is the government's argument that it's being offered for the truth of the matter?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Anything else you want to tell me, Mr. Leonard?
Yes, Your Honor. If I can respond briefly, every single document that he relied upon was hearsay. He was so he was so no, he was allowed to introduce every single hearsay document for its truth, not for the effect upon anyone else, for its truth. And we were denied the same opportunity to introduce the statement that he reviewed, which is keenly relevant to his findings. Because in the report, Your Honor, he repeatedly states that the authorization wasn't given by Andre Montgomery, which is a falsehood.
Miss Carroll?
Your Honor, every document in the exhibit the witness just walked through has been previously admitted as a business record. It is non-hearsay business record of the statements of a party opponent, to wit, Mr. Norman's text message of a co-conspirator, Mr. Yachman.
For the reasons that were just the documents that were referenced in the exhibits were admitted in evidence, there were text messages that had been admitted in evidence. They were recorded that they had been admitted as a business record. They were not hearsay statements. And the questions that you sought to ask were specific statements. The witness actually acknowledged that he reviewed it and didn't include information from it. These statements that you are seeking to ask him about were offered. You were asking them for the truth of the matter, and they were hearsay. The court will continue to sustain the objection. Again, it will be noted for the record.
I understand.
It is noted for the record.
Yeah, I'm not arguing that. Just based upon your ruling, I'm just renewing our motion for a mistrial based on that ruling. So we're gonna see as he starts to move along, he's gonna be asking for a mistrial with like
Because he know he was losing.
Yeah.
Okay, for the reason I have previously stated, the motion for a mistrial will be denied. And as I understand it, the government has indicated that they anticipate resting tomorrow their evidence. I know that the government had previously submitted some proposed jury instruction canceled for the defendant had submitted some proposed jury instruction. I want you to go back through your proposed jury instructions. I'm going to want by the end of the day tomorrow, what you propose as a final jury instruction. Again, I understand there may be further testimony and evidence that may cause these instructions to change, but I want to see updates proposed jury instructions. If you have any proposed jury instruction different than what you have previously submitted, I need you to submit them by the end of the day tomorrow. Again, when the government rests, it will be the defendant's opportunity to present evidence. I understand we are ahead of the schedule, but again, I'm going to ask you to use your best effort to prepare the proceeding tomorrow when the government rests. Anything we need to take up an issue with regard to the offer of proof that you submitted, I believe, late yesterday, as it relates to Russell Lewis, the offer of proof. Well, let me ask you, is there anything else you want to tell me with regard to the offer of proof?
No, Judge, just the fact that we previously tendered his credentials to the government. So we would stand on a written submission if the court wants us to submit a CV related information. We can do that.
I'm aware of the CV attachment to the government exhibit in opposition of the original designation of the experts. It appears to me that what was suggested as what he would testify is different from what you have presented and offered of proof. In the event, anything else you want to tell me?
Well, Judge, I would just add it has certainly become more keenly relevant in the light of the government's position that they could put on insurance representatives and then a summary witness to talk about the concept of insurable interest and actually present to the court and the jury conflicting versions of what is insurable interest is. So certainly an opinion witness to counter that when the government's conflicted can present conflicting information on that concept, it would be keenly relevant to the jury and it would assist them.
So you're telling me that the only purpose of the witness is simply talk about what an insurable interest is?
It is just as we set out.
But again, I'm telling you what you submitted before and what you submitted last night are two different things.
Well, we would have him testify to the things on which we think are encompassed. That number one, it is a common practice for people who have familiar relationship to submit policies of insurance. That it is common practice for individuals to be the owner of the policy when they have familiar relationship and to pay the premiums, which we have got to. You have allowed lay witnesses to testify to those same facts in certain instances. So we believe, Judge, we should be allowed to do the same from an opinion witness.
The opinion of an expert. Well, let me just go to the government. I know you have filed an objection. Anything else you want to tell me with regard to the government objection?
No, Your Honor, we maintain the same objection. We're not sorry like Mr. Leonard.
So why don't you just go ahead and tell me the objection again?
Your Honor, our objection was primarily based on the insufficiency of the disclosure. We have no idea what the documents this person has relied on. We got a one-sentence submission of what their proposed testimony would be. And again, we have no idea what they relied on. What reports were prepared in accordance within their review. We have none of that information. It just says, based on his training and experience, he's going to say these policies were okay. So our objection is one, a sufficiency of the disclosure.
Judge, if I can just raise a related issue.
Just talk about this issue.
That's what I'm talking about.
No, you're not.
Oh, all right. Well, you just said you were going to talk about related issue.
Correct. In rebuttal to what the government argued, Your Honor, because the court, in response to our motion in limine, with regards to their disclosure of their cell phone tower expert noted that it was very lacking in sufficiency of opinions. You repeatedly indicated that you agreed with us that although the expert set forth a generalized methodology, he had done almost nothing to give a basis for his opinions or actually give the opinions. So, Judge, in fairness, I think the same standard should be applied to our disclosure.
I think it is entirely different issue. What I was committing on with regard to the government notice is that there was an extensive report analysis about the methodology. What was lacking in the court view was that it didn't clearly explain the final opinion. It had to be derived from exhibits essentially that were part of his report. So that was my concern about that. I did express that concern. Here, there is nothing about what he has relied upon. There is no report. It was untimely, although I have been concerned and you have raised issues about the timelines of some of the discoveries from the government, but there is no report. There is no opinion in the report. And what you have submitted seems again to be two different things from your initial notice to the government. That to what you have indicated as the offer of proof. I think the offer of proof is indicated. I'll give you a final ruling on this tomorrow morning. I'll take into consideration all that you have both said, and I'll let you know tomorrow morning.
Can I ask you, with respect to what your practice is in Rule 29 motions for tomorrow?
In terms of motion for judgment at the close of the government's case?
Correct. Do you hear it then, or do you reserve it for argument?
I'll hear it then. You can supplement it with written motion.
Thanks, Judge.
Anything else before we recess for the day?
No, Your Honor.
No, Judge. Thank you.
Okay, we will be in recess until tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock.
All right. And then at 4:35 p.m., the proceedings stood in recess. So we are done with volume 3. On next week, we will move. Yes, give our wonderful cast your hand clapping emojis, your cheer emojis, and all that good stuff in the chat.
We made it through.
Yes, we made it through. And then next week, we will be moving to volume 4. The plan is next Wednesday, we'll return to Wednesday. I'm trying to juggle all this content y'all got me doing. So we'll be back with this we'll resume it on Wednesdays, but we'll do it I like the 6 o'clock hour, because then I can still do our Darius Crooks live afterwards, which is what we're about to do in a very short little while. I'm gonna read a couple. First I'm gonna drop y'all down. I'm gonna let y'all say y'all goodbyes, and then I'll read some comments. So we'll start with the way we pulled everyone in. Margin.
I think being respectful, the whole, with all the stuff going on this past week with the ship, in Baltimore, and with the rapper Puffy, I think is D something. Anyhow, lack of respect is 90% of the problem that we're having today, and I think being respectful goes a long way in anything you do in life. So that's all. And it was clearly lack of respect from Tim and his attorneys to the court also, I think.
Yeah. But, all right. Thank you. And we will see you on next week. Well, I guess we'll see you on the chat in a few minutes. Well, in about an hour. In about an hour, I'll be over there on the main channel.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Right. See you later. And I'm going to pull up Mocha. Any final words, friend?
No, I just cannot believe he tried to take out 5 policies, totaling over $1 million on his nephew. And he was even still trying in 2018 to get them to pay out on that policy. It just boggles my mind how devious that man is.
And then a week after he had, because I kind of forget about some of these details, but just seeing here how it was literally a week after Andre had arrived in St. Louis from Tim asking Miss Michelle to send him there so he could teach him how to be a man. So that was the only reason he wanted. It had nothing to do with the betterment of Andre or mentoring him. It was so he could get him there, get that personal information, and get insurance policies on him.
Exactly.
And how could he be harming him when he was in Texas minding his own business?
Exactly. And then the way he talked about, Miss Michelle. Wow.
When we heard that, everybody was like, oh, you heard the gasp. Like, you literally heard the gasp. A piece of what? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as always, it's fun. I love reading this stuff. So thanks for the invite.
All right. And thank you so much for your work. We'll talk to you next week. Well, we'll see you later, but we'll talk to you next week.
Okay. Bye.
And Shamika, thank you so much. This is Shamika's first night, everyone. Give her a round of applause for an amazing job. You did such a great job with no prompting, no practice, because I was rushing. I really appreciate it.
Thank
You did a
you.
great job. Any
Thank
final
you. I
words?
appreciate it. I just, uh, it's a double-edged sword because I remember when this show first came on. I was an avid watcher of it from the beginning. I supported Oprah when she started her network, and this is one of the first shows that I think helped put her network on the map. Besides, the Tyler Perry stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
I was so sad when this happened to Andre, and I never could imagine that it was Tim. Although I thought he was crazy, on the show, and I just thought, that was his jail stuff. Like he couldn't
Mm-hmm.
be happy. Just the amount of evil, and just reading it, the fact that he couldn't wait until enough time had passed for them to even get a death certificate on record before
Mm-hmm.
he was. Uh, it's just unbelievable.
And
But
you
thank you for letting me read.
Oh, no problem. And then the part that kills me is sending off for the death certificate, going through that process, but you still not once ever reaching out to his
No.
mama, who you asked if he could come to St. Louis. He asked for permission for her to for Dre to come to St. Louis. Dre ends up getting murdered in St. Louis, and he never reaches out to the mama to say anything to her about her losing her son in St. Louis.
I would think that the thing I would think about that is a normal human being would say, oh my goodness, they would sort of feel some kind of response. Oh my goodness, I brought him back here.
Yes.
That wasn't what I was wanting to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. He never said, I'm sorry.
Mm-mm.
Or he didn't feel anything. Of course, we know he didn't feel anything. He's just.
But he didn't even bother to try to fake it.
No, he didn't.
Yeah, which is like
Nothing.
another layer of disrespect on top of it all.
It was.
Yeah.
But
Well,
thank you.
Thank you so much, and we will see you next week.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye. And last but certainly not least, Precious.
Thanks, everybody. I'm sorry I was late today. My son bought his first car. And
Oh,
so,
yeah.
yeah, so it threw my schedule off because like when I go to his apartment, he kidnaps me, and I'm over there like I was over like a whole week because he got his new car. But I'm sorry I was late.
Oh, you good. You're good.
But yeah, I enjoyed myself. But yeah, Tim, Leonard is dumb. The text messages basically told the whole story, and this is why he wants that mistrial, dude. Mistrial, we already knew. Once they read those messages, it was basically a wrap. Everything
Mm-hmm.
else was just for giggles at that
Mm-hmm.
time. Everything else after those messages to me were read, the jurors were probably like, okay, to me that sealed the deal for them when they were reading those messages back and forth. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
pretend to be Andre. If you had any juror at that point that had any doubts, it sealed it.
Yeah.
Between it doesn't matter how his boy, his what's his name?
YL?
Not YL, the shooter.
Oh, Travell.
With Travell trying to backtrack and Tim yell, I didn't do it. It
Yeah.
was too late because
Yeah.
between Terica's testimony
Mm-hmm.
and those messages, the messages were the glue that put everything together.
Mm-hmm.
You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? To me,
Yeah.
any juror that had a reasonable doubt, kind of seeing those messages, it basically sunk him after that, and that's why Leonard tried to keep saying mistrial. And every time he talked about mistrial, the jurors were probably like, we're about to stick it to him. I think that every time he yelled mistrial was making it worse, in
Yeah.
my opinion. So,
Yeah.
but I'll see you guys next week.
All right. And see you in an hour if you can join the live.
Yes, I
All
will.
right. All right. See you
Bye.
later. Bye-bye. All right, then we got just a couple messages that started along the way. We got Sheila Chase is saying, watch what we text. Apparently, they could be used against you. Right. 100%. And that was a very valuable lesson I learned during the trial is how much Big Brother / the government is watching and able to track your every move. Like these are tracking devices. Like, yeah, we get to do all this stuff with them and you think it's personal, but this is literally a tracking device. Literally. They're able to track everything and pull up stuff, your old text messages, all kind of stuff. So definitely, if you don't want it to be public, don't text. Don't use your phone for it. And Sheila's saying, Vell, was he squirming in his seat as they read the penalties for fraud? He should have been. And this is in reference to Tim Norman. Tim Norman was stoic the entire time of the trial. Every once in a while, he would look around. During the breaks and stuff, you would see him look over to his, Montgomery family. Remember the first day or two of the trial, I think it was the first day, I can't remember, but the first day or two of the trial, the Griggs family was sitting within eye shot of right next to basically Tim. And he turned his head and mouthed that he didn't do it to Darren Griggs. So because of that, they moved their family over to the other side of the courtroom. And so actually it was the public that then sat where the Griggs were sitting, and the Montgomery sat in the middle section. But Tim, he would glance over there at them occasionally, mainly through the breaks and stuff, and nod his head and acknowledge people who was coming to see him, like JR and his friends, his cronies. But other than that, during the actual trial, during people's testimonies, Tim was looking ahead. He was very stoic, very emotional, didn't show any real emotions until I didn't do it. And that's why it really threw us off, because it wasn't like he was doing a lot during the trial. I can't wait till we get to his testimony either. We won't be far off from that. Alice is saying Miss Robbie should be ashamed of herself. This was in regards to Andre's salary, whatever you want to call it, tip, pennies. He was on that show making $3,000, y'all. And he literally, during his time on the show, he had a lot of camera time. So yeah, even if, they get to, Tim was the executive producer and creator of the show. I'm sure they could have gave him more money. Even if they gave it out of their own pocket, they could have gave him more money. $3,000 is abysmal. That's like, you ain't trying to help your own family. It's not about them. It's only about you. It seems that Sugar Sharon is saying, it seems that Dre wasn't being paid to be on the show. Apparently, they were taking advantage of him. Tim probably was pocketing Dre's earnings during his time on the show. At this point, knowing what we know now, that could be very likely, because again, Tim was the creator and one of the executive producers on the show. And so for Dre to be earning those kind of pennies and having such a big role on the show, and on top of that, Tim wrote episodes. So although it's supposed to be a reality show, Tim was writing out those scenarios, like Charles going on the date with the girl at the zoo and all of that. Those were written episodes. So Tim was writing Dre into the show and taking advantage of him, like you said. So horrible. I mean, the plot thickens, I tell you. It's so much. And this stuff we talk about. So with that, I'm going to let y'all go. I appreciate you for watching. Please hit that like button if you haven't. We want this channel to grow as well. Hit that subscribe button and share as well. We will eventually be having some more exclusive true crime content coming on this channel. It's definitely happening. And what else was I going to say? Oh, and I will be over on our Vell B Reacts channel with our nightly Surviving Darius Crooks live. I'm literally just going to throw a show together because I don't have a lot of time to prep, but it's going to be good. I got some good stuff. I already know what we're going to talk about. But give me about an hour to get that together. It's saying that it'll premiere at 8:45. I might be running a couple minutes behind, but I will be over there, and it's going to be another good show. So I will, and then I can't go live tomorrow. So I was like, let me definitely make sure we do the Surviving Darius Crooks tonight, because I can't do it tomorrow. I think I'm just going to take tomorrow off from being on camera. So with that, y'all have a great, see y'all in a few. See y'all in an hour. All right.